Welcome to Getting Our Reward Heads Together, the podcast for reward and HR leaders brought to you by Reward Heads. Each episode we explore the ideas, challenges and innovations shaping how organisations design, deliver and talk about reward. We're a boutique consultancy creating bespoke solutions for our clients, but we'll tell you more about that after the episode. For now, let's get started. Welcome to our podcast where we get our reward heads together. I'm Victoria Milford, CEO of Reward Heads, and today we're diving into a topic that's too often overlooked, the disability pay gap. While gender and ethnicity pay gaps get quite a lot of airtime, the disability pay gap seems to be the quiet inequality. According to the Office for National Statistics, disabled employees in the UK earn on average about 13% less than their non-disabled peers. And that's not just a number, that's a signal of barriers to access, progression and opportunity. And so today, Katy Downes and I are going to talk about that and some experiences that we have had in reporting on this and other protected characteristics. Hi, Katy.
Oh, hi, Victoria. Thanks for inviting me today. So my experience comes as head of reward in a range of businesses where we've been trying to solve, probably more shine a light on inequality gaps. And with the UK government introducing the mandatory ethnicity and disability pay gap
Easy
reporting.
For you to say, yeah.
Yes, not really. Under the new equality bill. It's really a key moment, I think, for employers to act. So it's exciting. We're going to be exploring what that means and how to build really fair, transparent and inclusive reward systems by design.
Yeah, that's a good point. The disability pay gap isn't just about pay, is it? It's about the systems that are behind those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Employers with disabilities often face fewer promotional opportunities, less access to things like mentoring, stretch assignments, inconsistency in workplace adjustments, and sometimes bias, not necessarily conscious, but all of that affects performance reviews and progression for, people in those protected characteristics.
So before we can fix pay, organisations really need to understand what's driving those gaps. And that's the foundation for any real change.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think transparency is step one. So to close that gap, you really need to understand it by measuring it and having really reliable data that underpins what you're doing.
And that's the real challenge in this area, isn't it? That we've got gender data because we need it to submit to HMRC, but many organisations just don't have disability data, do they? And getting that starts with trust. Encouraging employees to disclose disability information takes a bit of psychological safety and clear communication. People need to know why you're collecting the data, how it'll be used, and that it'll be handled confidentially. We've both got trouble speaking today.
It's a Friday. What do you expect? It's definitely one of the challenges around disability reporting and what it means to individuals, whether they disclose it or not. I'll give you an example of one of the organisations I was involved with from my experience. It was a relatively small organisation, around 2,000 employees. And they had 10 times more people who disclosed their reasonable adjustments rather than their disability. And I wonder if reasonable adjustments is something that organisations can look at. That's 30% more data that you'd be looking for in terms of, access to information from the workforce.
Well, that is a significant difference, isn't it? And it kind of suggests we don't really know how many people have a challenge in performing their work.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That gap and that difference in data told us everything. People are willing to ask for what they need to do their job well, but they weren't necessarily comfortable in declaring a disability. And I completely understand why. When you're joining a new company, you don't really know what the culture is. So you might not necessarily feel comfortable in disclosing your disability at that point. You might want to wait until you settled in. And then, you build your relationships and you can feel more comfortable there. But of course, the problem is it works both ways. If you don't disclose when you join and then you don't actually feel safe to disclose after you have joined because you can't build that trust, then you're a little bit stuck. and you ultimately haven't then disclosed your disability, and you maybe feel then that you can't. But there may be things that you need help and support with that you are happy to disclose, so that you can do the job that you're there to do.
So once you knew that reasonable adjustments were a really great source of data, what did you do?
Well, you know me, Victoria, I'm all about the comms. So what really helped was being transparent about the data internally. So we started sharing our pay gap analysis, not just disability, but all the protected characteristics. We looked at sexual orientation pay gap, which isn't one I've heard any other organisations looking at particularly. And it was actually trying to make it meaning for people. So not just giving out headline numbers and expecting people to understand it, but actually spending time running sessions, doing webinars, talking to people so they knew what we meant, and they knew and understood why we were doing it, why we were interested in this data, and why we wanted it, so that we could make real progress and help them, move forward and feel more comfortable. And I think that when people understand that disclosure can help identify and fix structural inequalities, it isn't just about labeling for individuals. Disclosure rates really can start to improve. And that extra transparency really can build trust. And it did enable us to get greater disclosure. So it's almost like a virtuous circle. Organizations have to be willing to share data, and not in a jargonous way, really plain English, basic information, and really help people understand, and not just focusing on those particular characteristics that they have to publish externally when they're forced to. We know we have to do the gender pay gap, but actually building trust around other protected characteristic gaps, I think it is the key personally.
And if and when we get to the place of needing to declare a disability pay gap, I think what you're saying is it's not just about that. It's perhaps even using the reasonable adjustments could be a better or an alternative way maybe of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's likely, not necessarily, but it's likely that organizations will have more data in that space. So it's worth organizations considering looking at the reasonable adjustments pay gap alongside the disability pay gap reporting. This is the reality. If you need a reasonable adjustment, you have to ask the organization for it, which means the company has a record, whether or not you've disclosed a formal disability, within your HR profile. And, the organization I mentioned had 10 times more people with an adjustment than those who had declared their formal declarations. Of course, you have to remember that not everyone with a reasonable adjustment has a disability. Reasonable adjustments can cover all sorts of different things, but I do think it's a useful indicator. And, it might be that people can benefit from that additional support. So it's about working out, what data you have within your organization. Can you get a greater depth of data by looking at something slightly different? And if so, why wouldn't you look at both sets of data? I mean, Victoria, once you built that spreadsheet, you can input all sorts of protected characteristics data into it. And it can give you all sorts of insights that as an organization you may never have really thought of.
Yeah, I think it's a really great suggestion. It's a much more pragmatic approach, isn't it? It's saying, what data have we got or can we reasonably get? And it respects the fact that some people may never formally declare a disability, but are willing to ask for what they need to perform well. So it kind of focuses on the right question. Are we supporting and fairly rewarding people who've needed adjustments to thrive in our organisation, rather than, are we just producing some stats that we need to?
Yeah. And actually, our data showed that employees with reasonable adjustments had even a greater pay gap than those with a disability.
Really?
But more importantly, I think they're significantly underrepresented in senior roles. And it wasn't just the disability or the adjustments who are holding people back, but these groups of people falling into different categories are more likely to be at junior levels. They we found that there was a challenge for flexible working in more senior roles. And so if you need flexible working for part of a condition as part of a reasonable adjustment, potentially, you get hit by a bit of a glass ceiling, and inadvertently organizations are holding these people back. So by publishing this sort of data, looking at different characteristics, even before it comes mandatory, it really can show internal commitment. And it just sparks something in organizations to think, hang on, we need to be doing the right thing by these people. Why haven't we got more reasonable adjustments being requested at senior levels? Is it about flexibility? And do we need to look more broadly at our workforce?
Interesting. So on the subject of that legislation, we're waiting the outcome at time of recording of the government's consultation on mandatory reporting, and we are expecting it to mirror the gender pay gap reporting, so looking at mean and median pay and bonus gaps, workforce representation and disclosure rates. So for employers with over 250 people who will need to comply once the bill does pass, now really is the time to review the data, isn't it, and pay governance and inclusion strategies to stay ahead and not be caught out.
Gosh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, to really close the gap, I do think organizations should be looking at how pay decisions are made.
So asking questions like, are grading and pay progression systems transparent? Are bonus metrics fair to everyone? And are flexible and part-time roles available at all levels, not just the junior ones, as you've just said?
Yeah, totally. Embedding inclusion into pay governance means reward decisions are based on contribution and capability, not just your circumstances.
And that really flags up another key area, doesn't it? Accessibility. So pay gaps often reflect deeper inequalities in access and opportunity. And it could be quite literal physical accessibility or materials available in Braille or British Sign Language on videos or something like that. So it's about making adjustments that are easy and quick, training line managers on inclusive leadership, and creating development pathways, mentoring, sponsorship for disabled employees. So, I mean, we know, don't we, true equity isn't just levelling the playing field. I'm sure everyone's seen that cartoon of people looking over the fence or trying to look over the fence. And equality gives everyone a box to stand on. But the shorter people still can't see over the fence, and they may need a bigger box. So if we're going to get everyone to participate fully, we really need to look at, what does the box look like for each individual?
Yeah, 100%. And actually, leadership commitment in this is absolutely essential. Closing the gaps really should be part of broader ESG, DEI accountability with measurable goals and public progress updates. Transparency builds authenticity. Even if progress is slow, sharing that journey matters because inclusion is a shared responsibility. And this really, I think, is where psychological safety becomes absolutely critical. And it's something that I'm really passionate about in my coaching work. So as well as working in reward consultancy, I work as a career coach, as you well know, Victoria. And I really focus on confidence, workplace challenges and leadership development. And what I'm seeing is that people don't just need adjustments, they need to feel safe to ask for them. And being safe themselves at work and feeling confident to advocate for their own progression. And so what I really think the challenge is that manager capability. So what I've heard through my coaching practice is, an employee maybe discloses a disability or asks for an adjustment, and the manager really genuinely wants to be supportive. Don't get me wrong. Managers want to do the right things by their people, but often they don't exactly know what to do and they're worried about saying the wrong thing. And so they don't know what questions are appropriate or what they should ask. They feel nervous in this space. And so they hesitate. And that's the problem. Because even when it's well-intentioned, this individual can then quietly get left out of development conversations and promotion discussions because the manager is nervous about doing the wrong thing and they almost freeze and they do nothing.
So we know access to roles and projects is a key issue for all so-called minority groups. I absolutely hate that term. But do you think it goes wider than just that access?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about access to roles. It's about how we measure performance as well. Are your bonus metrics or performance targets inadvertently disadvantaging someone who's maybe had medical leave or they work reduced hours? Are you expecting to see them around face to face in the office or travel somewhere, which maybe they can't do? Maybe they've got caring responsibilities themselves. And these sorts of design flaws compound the pay gap as well. So I think that, organizations really need to build this psychological safety and manager capability. And the two together actually will help drive employees forward. So, coaching for employees to build confidence in navigating their careers and development for managers so they can become truly inclusive leaders, because it's that moment I mentioned where they freeze, they don't know what to say. And that's where the challenge comes. Because it's not just about fixing the structures, it's really about equipping people with confidence and the skills to break down those barriers every single day.
You know what? I don't think I've ever been in an organisation where the HR team have not had manager capability on the people plan. I think it's a tough gig. It's hard being a manager.
It is.
And people are often promoted on their technical skills and all the other stuff that sits around it. They're just expected to know, and it's hard.
It's like a double job.
You say.
You have your day job and you have to be a manager. It's hard. I totally agree.
And the closing the pay gaps, it's not something you can just put on an action plan and it sits, in isolation on its own, although we've probably both seen quite a few of those. Disability inclusion should be really embedded in the overall reward strategy, shouldn't it? And indeed all other segments of the workforce. So that does mean training reward and HR teams to recognise bias and review benchmarking approaches, linking inclusion metrics to leadership performance. It's about building inclusion into how you define success, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, ultimately, pay equity is cultural. It's about day-to-day decisions that shape how people are valued. So closing the disability pay gap, it isn't a tick box exercise. It's about creating a workplace where all contributions are recognised and everyone can thrive.
Absolutely. I mean, Reward Heads, we believe equity, inclusion and reward have to move together. And for me, it's all about enabling everyone to fulfill their potential. Otherwise, as individuals, as employers, as society, we're just wasting those opportunities. And of course, we are here to help, whether that's reviewing pay frameworks or building inclusive reward strategies or preparing for legislation. If you would like support or just want to learn more, have a look at www.rewardheads.co.uk or drop us a line at rewardsolutions@rewardheads.co.uk. Katy, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your own experiences.
Thanks, Victoria. It's been a really interesting topic to dig into, and a pleasure chatting to you. A pleasure chatting to you, with you, for you, alongside you.
How can people reach you then if they want to explore a bit more?
Thanks for asking. You can email me at katy@proeliohr.com. That's PROELIOHR.com if you'd like to explore this further. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Getting Our Reward Heads Together, brought to you by Reward Heads. We're a boutique reward consultancy working with organisations across the UK and beyond. Our mission is to help HR and reward leaders design fair, engaging and effective reward frameworks and solutions, from pay and benefits to recognition and governance. Every solution we create is bespoke, built around each client's unique goals and challenges. We also offer coaching, resourcing, and trusted forums to keep you connected to the latest reward trends. If we can support your reward journey, we'd love to hear from you.